Hello and welcome to this exploring session as we conclude our work on The Arraignment of Paris by George Peele, and then halfway through the session we're going to segue neatly into a very similar play, Selimus. No, actually, let's be honest, these two plays could not be more different from one another in so many ways that I'm sure we will have fun excavating as we go. The Arraignment of Paris, we've done the first 3 acts where the plot has quietly sidled up to us. The arraignment of the title is basically about to happen. Paris has been arraigned. We've been discussing what kind of arraignment. We're thinking it's a civil suit at the moment, though it may have dire consequences. And just a general warning, there are an awful lot of gods turning up. This play requires a mass assembly of gods. The gods, as has been stated previously, the gods assemble, and so there may be a little bit of confusion in your mind as to which god is speaking. I suspect it won't really matter so long as there's a sort of general panoply of gods saying some stuff. Gods say the funniest things. This session, we have assembled a crack team, assembled to be the gods assembled, and in no particular order, reading Pallas and Mars, and then later in Selimus, Bajazet is.
I'm Steve Longstaffe. I'm a scholar of early modern drama based in Lancaster in the UK.
And reading Paris and Clotho, and also in the second play, Cherseoli is.
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor based in Montpellier, France.
And reading Neptune and Lachesis, and then Messenger in Selimus is.
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk, UK, not an actor.
Reading Venus in Arraignment and Mustaffa in Selimus is.
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor usually based in London, currently stuck in Germany.
And reading Juno today is.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth. I'm an author and I'm based in Romford, Essex.
And reading the part of Pluto in Arraignment and Occhiali in Selimus is.
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian and I'm currently stuck in Yorkshire.
And reading Mercury, Atropos, and in Selimus is.
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
And with the dulcet tones of my dog barking in the background, playing Nymph and Saturn, and later Sinam is.
Hiya, my name's Simon Nader, and I'm just like Sarah, but without hair and being in England.
And new to the group, reading Bacchus, Jupiter, and the Prologue to Selimus is.
Hi, I'm Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
And finally, reading Vulcan and Diana in Arraignment only is.
Hi, I'm Valentina, and I'm an actor and voiceover artist in London.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading Apollo in a sort of Bonzo Dog Doodah fashion sense. And so we move into Act 4, Scene 1. And we're going to go into this without further ado, and we'll see how far we get into this scene. Enter one of Diana's nymphs, followed by Vulcan.
Why, Nymph, what need you run so fast? What tough but black eye be? I have more pretty necks to please than every eye doth see. And though I go not so upright, and though I am a smith, to make me gracious, you may have some other things therewith.
Enter Bacchus.
Yea, Vulcan, will you so indeed? Nay, turn and tell him, troll, he hath a mistress of his own to take his belly full.
Why, sir, if Phoebe's dainty nymphs please lusty Vulcan's tooth, why may not Vulcan tread Ori as well as Venus doth?
You shall not taint your troth for me, you wot it very well. All that be Diane's maids are vowed to halter apes in hell.
I'faith, my gentle mops, but I do know a cast. Lead apes who list that we would help it and halter them as fast.
Fie, your skill is wondrous great. Had thought the god of wine had tended but his tubs and grapes, and not been half so fine.
Gramercy for that quirk, my girl.
That's one of Dainty's frumps.
I pray, sir, take't with all amiss. Our cunning comes by lumps.
She hath capped his answers in that queue.
How says her? Has she so? As well as she that capped your head to keep you warm below.
Yeah, then you will be cursed, I see.
Best let her even alone.
Yea, gentle gods, and find some other string to harp upon.
Some other string, agreed, i' faith. Some other pretty thing. 'Twere shame fair maid should idle be. How say you, will ye sing?
Some rounds or merry roundelays, we sing no other songs. Your melancholic notes not to our country mirth belongs.
Here comes a crew will help us trim.
Enter Mercury with our favourite character, the Cyclops.
Yea, now our task is done.
Then merry Mercury, more than time this round were well begun.
And here they sing, hey, down, 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 or something similar. The song done, the nymph windeth a horn in Vulcan's ear and runneth out.
A harlotly I warrant her.
A peevish elvish shrew.
Have seen as far to come as near, for all her ranging so. But Bacchus, time well spent, I wot. Our sacred father Jove, with Phoebus and the god of war, are met in Dian's grove.
Then we are here before them yet, but stay, the earth doth swell. God Neptune too, this hap is good, doth meet the prince of hell.
Pluto ascendeth from below in his chair. Neptune entereth at another way.
What jars are these that call the gods of heaven and hell below?
It is a work of wit and toil to rule a lusty shrew.
Enter Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, Mars, Juno, Pallas, and Diana.
Bring forth the man of Troy, that he may hear whereof he is to be arraigned here.
Lo, where it comes, prepared to plead his case, under conduct of lovely Venus' grace.
Enter Venus with Paris.
I have not seen a more alluring boy.
So beauty hight the wreck of Priam's Troy. And the gods being set in Diana's bower, Juno, Pallas, and Venus, and Paris stand on sides before them.
Lo, sacred Jove, at Juno's proud complaint, as erst I gave my pledge to Mercury, I bring the man whom he did late attaint, to answer his indictment orderly, and crave this grace of this immortal senate, that ye allow the man his advocate.
That may not be. The laws of heaven deny a man to plead or answer by attorney.
Pallas, thy doom is all too peremptory.
Venus, that favour is denied him flatly. He is a man, and therefore by our laws himself without his aid must plead his cause.
Then bash not, shepherd, in so good a case, and friends thou hast as well as foes in place.
Why, Mercury, why do ye not indict him?
Soft, gentle Juno, I pray you, do not bite him.
Nay, gods, I trow, you are like to have great silence, unless this parrot be commanded hence.
Venus, forbear, be still. Speak, Mercury.
If Juno jangle, Venus will reply.
Paris, King Priam's son, thou art arraigned of partiality, of sentence partial and unjust, for that without indifferency, beyond desert or merit far, as thine accusers say, from them to Lady Venus here thou gavest the prize away. What is thine answer?
And we'll pause there before Paris does his oration to the gods, because it's quite chunky. Lots of things leap out at me here. We've got this sort of opening banter as all the gods arrive, and we get this lovely sort of dynamic of who likes who and who doesn't like others, and sort of little generally family sniping. I like Jupiter ascendeth from below in his chair. There's a little bit of stage mechanics here. I think it's the reverse of our favourite Venus coming from above, we've got Pluto coming from below. I've not seen a more alluring boy. There's something interesting there. But we also have a beauty standard issue at the very, very opening. Vulcan covered in soot, and there is that element to early modern culture that being darker of hue and being is a lesser to being white of hue, and I think we should always flag that up and question what we do with that in productions in the future and what that says. Thoughts about the room from the scene so far prior to Paris making his oration?
We've got a lot more male parts.
Mm.
I mean, the first half was very female dominated.
Alan?
It's beginning to look like he's being stitched up. You know, denied any form of counsel.
Mm. Yes, Apollo's quite stern on this point of law, isn't he?
Probably knows which side his bread's buttered.
Mm. Well, there is a sense of the room dividing along party lines, isn't there? There's that sort of Parliament of heaven quality to it.
Can I make a Q-skipped geek point?
Go for it.
Which is when the nymph is rhyming, Vulcan says she has capped his answer in the Q. And I think that's probably a reference to theatrical cueing, which it's a bit difficult to unpick just reading it. But it's something to do with very quickly coming back on something, isn't it? Which is a kind of staple of people like Tarleton later on. So it's an interesting sort of metadramatic little moment, I think. And
is that an indication that interchange should be played at pace?
Yeah, it would work better, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, similarly with that overlapping section we had yesterday, the question of pacing and being able to play around with that in a much more actually rehearsed way would bring out different dynamics to it. I think that's the point. Yeah, how do you cue when your cue is on top of almost the line itself? I think that's a good point.
Well, also if the cue is a single word, which some people sometimes argue, or a word or two, you know, the point is that you have no time to think.
Simply react.
Also a perfectly enormous cast, which makes sense if they had this entire choir of children to act it.
And of course we've got a song. We've got, and I'm assuming that the way the music is structured, that it sort of does a down, 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 and it sort of goes down the scale kind of thing. I made that up off the top of my head. I've no idea. We don't have the music. Any additional thoughts before we move on to Paris's oration? No? Okay. Paris, plead your case.
Sacred and just, thou great and dreadful Jove, and you thrice reverend powers, whom love nor hate may rest awry, if this to me a man, this fortune fatal be, that I must plead for safe excusal of my guiltless thought, the honor more makes my mishap the less. That I a man must plead before the gods, gracious forbearers of the world's amiss, for her, whose beauty how it hath enticed, this heavenly senate may with me aver. But sith nor that, nor this may do me boot, and for myself must speaker be, a mortal man amidst this heavenly presence. Let me not shape a long defense to them that bend beholders of my guiltless thoughts. Then for the deed, that I may not deny, wherein consists the full of mine offense, I did upon command. If then I erred, I did no more than to a man belonged. And if in verdict of their forms divine, my dazzled eye did swerve or surfeit more on Venus's face than any face of theirs, it was no partial fault, but fault of his belike, whose eyesight not so perfect was as might discern the brightness of the rest. And if it were permitted unto man, ye gods, to par with your secret thoughts, there been that sit upon that sacred seat that would with Paris err in Venus's praise. But let me cease to speak of error here, sith with my hand the organ of my heart did give with good agreement of mine eye. My tongue is vowed with process to maintain.
A jolly shepherd, wise and eloquent.
First then, arraigned of partiality, Paris replies unguilty of the fact. His reason is because he knew no more fair Venus's seston than Dame Juno's mace, nor never saw wise Pallas's crystal shield. Then as I looked, I loved and liked at once. And as it was referred from them to me to give the prize to her whose beauty best my fancy did command, so did I praise and judge as might my dazzled eye discern.
A piece of art that cunningly perdie refers the blame to weakness of his eye.
Now, for I must add reason for my deed, why Venus rather pleased me of the three. First, in the entrails of my mortal ears, the question standing upon beauty's blaze, the name of her that hight the queen of love, my thoughts in beauty should not be excelled. Had it been destined to majesty, yet will I not rob Venus of her grace. Then stately Juno might have been born the ball. Had it to wisdom been entitled, that my human wit had given it Pallas then. But sith unto the fairest of the three, that power that threw it from my father ill, did dedicate this ball, and safest durst my shepherd's skill adventure, as I thought, to judge form and beauty rather than of Juno's state or Pallas's worthiness, that learned to ken the fairest of the flock and praised beauty but by nature's aim. Behold, to Venus, Paris give this fruit, a daysman chosen there by full consent, and heavenly powers should not repent their deeds. Where it is said, beyond desert of hers, I honored Venus with this golden prize. Ye gods, alas, what can a mortal man discern betwixt the sacred gifts of heaven? Or, if I may reverence reason thus, suppose I gave and judged corruptly then, for hope of that best did please my thought. This apple not for beauty's praise alone. I might offend, sith I was guerdoned and tempted more than ever creature was, with wealth, with beauty, and with chivalry, and so preferred beauty before them all, the thing that hath enchanted heaven itself. And for the one, contentment is my wealth. A shell of salt will serve a shepherd's swain, a slender banquet in a homely scrip, and water running from the silver spring. For arms, they dread no foes that sit so low. A thorn can keep the wind off my back. A sheepcote thatched, a shepherd's palace height. Of tragic muses, shepherds con no skill. Enough is them. If Cupid been displeased to sing his praise on slender oaten pipe, and thus thrice reverend have I told my tale, and crave the torment of my guiltless soul to be measured by my faultless thought. If warlike Pallas or the Queen of Heaven sue to reverse my sentence by appeal, be it as pleased your majesties divine, the wrong, the hurt, not mine, if any be, but hers, whose beauty claimed the prize of me.
Venus, withdraw your shepherd for a space, till he again be called for into place.
And exit Venus and Paris. And actually, there's a slight error here. It's my bad. Jupiter continues speaking, saying Juno as his first word.
Oh, Juno, what will ye after this reply, but doom with sentence of indifferency? And if you will but justice in the cause, the man must be quitted be by heaven's laws.
Yea, gentle Jove, when Juno's suits are moved, then heaven may see how well she's beloved.
Ah, but madam, fits it majesty divine in any sort from justice to decline? You're muted, sir.
Whether the man be guilty, yea or no, that doth not hinder our appeal, I trow.
Phoebus, I was. Amid this heavenly crew, there be that have to say as well as you.
And Juno, I with them and they with me, in law and right must needfully agree.
I grant ye may agree, but be content to doubt upon regard of your agreement.
And if he mocked, the man in his defence said thereof, as I might with reverence.
And did do very well, I promise ye.
No doubt, sir, you could note it cunningly.
Well, Juno, if ye will appeal, ye may. But first, dispatch the shepherd hence away.
And Vulcan's dame is like to have the wrong.
And that in passion doth to Mars belong.
Call Venus and the shepherd in again.
And exit Mercury.
And rid the man that he may know his pain.
His pain, his never-dying pain, a cause to make many more complain. Okay, I'll just briefly pause there before we go into the final sequence of this scene. Who was convinced by Paris's oration there? I'm sort of interested about the sort of desperation that sort of creeps into that speech, and the energy and you know, he plays his cards well, I think. But how do we feel about that, and also what the infighting of the gods before they're brought back in again? Alan, I see a hand.
Yes, and I found him quite convincing. It was an interesting reference there to blaming it on eyesight problems, modern reference. But yeah, basically he's being shafted.
He's been shafted. Thoughts from the room on that?
Where are the entrails of your ears? Paris says, first, in the entrails of my mortal ears.
Earlobes?
I don't know.
No, innards, I would suspect.
Yes.
Innards.
What bones you've got in your ears?
The inside bits.
Hmm.
Oh, all right.
Could it be the brain? For then the understanding, the sound is processed.
Okay, yeah.
Could be the innards of your ears, you know.
Yeah, they do look a bit like entrails in sort of the sort of wavy wiggliness form.
Exactly. Yeah. Wriggly worms.
It's still a slightly odd phrasing.
But to answer your question, Pluto says that he shows due reverence to the gods. But
yes,
that's about it.
I noted Pluto was very much on side there. I was sort of hoping I'd be able to sort of go for a yay or a nay from various gods as we went through. And
Pluto likes his attitude. Whether his cause is just or not is another matter altogether.
Any other thoughts before we finish the scene? Okay, I see nothing. Let's bring Venus and Paris are brought back in by Mercury.
Shepherd, thou hast been heard with equity and law, and for thy stars do thee to other calling draw. We here dismiss thee hence by order of our senate. Go take thy way to Troy, and there abide thy fate.
Sweet shepherd, with such luck in love, while thou dost live, as may the queen of love to any lover give.
My luck is loss, howe'er my love do speed. I fear me Paris shall but rue his deed.
And Paris exits. From Ida woods now wends the shepherd's boy, that in his bosom carries fire to Troy.
Venus, these ladies do appeal, you see, and that they may appeal, the gods agree. It resteth then that you will be content to stand in this unto our final judgment. And if King Priam's son did well in this, the law of heaven will not lead amiss.
But sacred Jupiter, might thy daughter choose, she might with reason this appeal refuse. Yet if they be unmoved in their shames, be it a stain and blemish to their names, a deed, too, far unworthy of the place, unworthy Pallas' lance or Juno's mace, and if to beauty it bequeathed be, I doubt not but it will return to me.
And she layeth down the ball.
Venus, there is no more ado than so. It resteth where the gods do it bestow.
But ladies, under favour of your rage, howe'er it be, you play upon the vantage.
Then, dames, that we more freely may debate, and hear the indifferent sentence of this senate, withdraw you from this presence for a space, till we have thoroughly questioned of the case. Diane shall be your guide, nor shall you need yourselves to inquire how things do here succeed. We will, as we resolve, give you to know, by general doom, how everything doth go.
Valentina.
Thy will, my wish, fair ladies, will you wend?
Beshrew her whom this sentence doth offend.
Now, Jove, be just, and gods, you that be Venus' friends, if you have ever done her wrong, then may you make amends.
And exeunt Diana, Juno, Pallas, and Venus, which is helpful because Diana's playing someone else in a second.
Venus is fair, Pallas and Juno too.
But tell me now, without some more ado, who is the fairest she, and do not flutter?
Vulcan, upon comparison hangs all the matter. That done, the quarrel and the strife were ended.
Because 'tis known the quarrel is pretended.
Mas, you have reason for your speech, Purdy. My dame, I trow, is fairest in your eye.
Or Vulcan, I should do her double wrong.
About a toy we tarry here so long. Give it by voices. Voices give the odds. A trifle so to trouble all the gods.
Believe me, Saturn did so for me.
For me.
For me.
For me, if Jove agree.
And gentle gods, I am indifferent, but then I know who's likely to be shent.
Thrice reverend gods, and thou immortal Jove, if Phoebus may, as him doth much behove, be licensed according to our laws, to speak uprightly in this doubted case, saith women's wits work men's unceasing woes, to make them friends that are now been friendless foes, and peace to keep with them, with us and all, that make their title to this golden ball, nor think, ye gods, my speech doth derogate from sacred power of this immortal Senate. Refer this sentence where it doth belong. In this I say I, fair Phoebe hath the wrong, not that I mean her beauty bears the prize, but that the holy law of heaven denies one god to meddle in another's power, and this befell so near Diana's bower, as for the appeasing this unpleasant grudge. In my conceit she hight the fittest judge. If Jove control not Pluto's hell with charms, if Mars have sovereign power to manage arms, if Bacchus bear no rule in Neptune's sea, nor Vulcan's fire doth Saturn's scythe obey, suppress not then, 'gainst law and equity, Diana's power in her own territory, whose regiment amid her sacred bowers as proper height as any rule of yours. Well may we so wipe all the speech away that Pallas, Juno, Venus have to say, and answer that by justice of our laws we were not suffered to conclude the cause, and this to me most equal doom appears, a woman to be judge among her fears.
Apollo hath found out the only mean to rid the blame from us and trouble clean.
We are beholden to his sacred wit.
I can commend and well allow of it, and so derive the matter from us all, that Diane hath have the giving of the ball.
So Jove may clearly excuse him in the case, where Juno else would chide and browl apace.
They all rise.
And now it were some cunning to divine to whom Diana will this prize resign.
Sufficeth me, it shall be none of mine.
Vulcan, though thou be black, thou nothing fine.
God bathe thee, Bacchus, in a tub of wine, the ball's as likely to be mine as thine.
And they exit. Yeah, it's there are various little problems with that scene. It's interesting that the blokes send out the women and then go, "Oh well, this isn't very important, is it? I don't want to get involved. Shall we just hand it over to Diana? She'll sort it out. Yeah, that'll be fine. Drink."
Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which could be played as satire quite nicely, and I think probably that's the best scope we can go for it, because I think if we played that with the straight bat, that might not go down well with 50% of the audience. Thoughts about that?
Well, it's unexpected.
Mm.
I mean, they arrive before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says we don't have jurisdiction.
Mm. It's a bit Herody, actually, with Jesus. So, Herod gets Jesus brought over, and Herod and Pilate sends. There's this jurisdictional thing between popping him back and forth between Herod and Pilate, going, well, technically it's not my province. You should send him out. It's his. It's not my jurisdiction, and everyone doesn't want to make the judgment. So there's an interesting parallel there. Poor Paris. He doesn't he just sort of gets sent away to Troy. That'll go well.
The point at which he ceases to be the shepherd and becomes the Prince of Troy, becomes Priam's son, gets kind of murky. I suppose the audience is just supposed to know that Priam's son was brought up as a shepherd. Mm. Because there's absolutely no explanation for this.
No, it's with Arte's opening in the beginning of the play. It does sort of. There's a expectation the audience does know this. I think, as Stephen said the other day about this sort of being a reboot with materials that everybody already knows. That makes a lot of sense with this, and that's sort of one of the elements that we kind of need to think about when presenting this today, is that how do we impart knowledge that doesn't necessarily exist in the audience? Beyond a paperclip pop-up of you are entering the realm of classical literature. Would you like some help with this? Yes. Paperclip pop-ups in theatre. I think that's obviously the solution. Someone contradict me. Why is no one saying anything?
You'd have to explain the paperclip to anybody under about 30, probably.
Yeah. That would just bring up a whole load of other issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Subtitles for the hard of Latin. Well, Greek.
So it's judgment deferred. They put down the ball. Ball's left in plain sight. No one goes near the ball. Do not touch the ball.
Well, it's not so much judgment deferred as responsibility avoided.
They don't want to get involved. It's messy.
I don't think you could blame them.
No.
The three ladies agreed a set of rules, and then the two who didn't win decided that they didn't like it.
Yeah. Any additional thoughts before we close the playoff?
Well, it did just occur to me that, given that Paris has been arraigned before these gods and made to justify himself at great length, and clearly realizes which way the wind is blowing, does make me wonder why he then goes off and grabs Helen.
Fate. Fate. He can't. Fate.
Nah.
Yeah.
That fate thing.
The first time he saw Helen, there were 4 Cupids. He hasn't got a choice. With one Cupid, you're in trouble. When there are 4, I mean, he's doomed.
Quadricupid.
Yeah.
And he sang in Italian. She sang in Italian.
Yeah, that's true. She sang in Italian.
Yeah.
Fatal.
Yeah.
I'll have
Okay.
to ask for a reprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, this time by an Italian. Oh, Don Fatale we feel somebody ought to be singing that.
Okay, that was Act 4. We have a final, relatively short Act 5. So let us close the play. Let's see where this is going, because of course we still haven't got a decision. Who's going to get the ball? Who's going to get the ball? I know who's going to get the ball, but do you know who's going to get the ball? It's very exciting. Very exciting. Okay, enter Diana, Juno, Pallas, and Venus, all the central cohort of this, the question of who gets the ball.
Lo, ladies, far beyond my hope and will, you see, this thankless office is imposed to me, wherein if you will rest as well content, as Diana will be judge indifferent. My equal doom shall none of you offend, and of this quarrel make a final end. And therefore, whether you will believe or loath, confirm your promise with some sacred oath.
Phoebe, chief mistress of this sylvan chase, whom gods have chosen to conclude the case that yet in balance undecided lies, touching bestowing of this golden prize, I give my promise, and mine oath withal, by Styx, by heaven's power imperial, by all that longs to Pallas' deity, her shield, her lance, ensigns of chivalry, her sacred wreath of olive and of bay, her crested helm, and else what Pallas may, that wheresoe'er this ball of purest gold that chaste Diana here in hand doth hold, impartially her wisdom shall bestow, without mislike or quarrel any mo. Pallas shall rest content and satisfied, and say, the best desert doth there abide.
And here I promise and protest withal, by Styx, by heaven's power imperial, by all that longs to Juno's deity, her crown, her mace, ensigns of majesty, her spotless marriage rites, her league divine, and by that holy name of Proserpine, that wheresoever this ball of purest gold, that chaste Diana here in hand doth hold, and partially her wisdom shall bestow, without mislike or quarrel any mo. Juno shall rest content and satisfied, and say the best desert doth there abide.
And, lovely Phoebe, for I know thy doom will be no other than shall thee become. Behold, I take thy dainty hand to kiss, and with my solemn oath confirm my promise. By Styx, by Jove's immortal empery, by Cupid's bow, by Venus' myrtle tree, by Vulcan's gifts, my ceston and my fan, by this red rose, whose colour first began when erst my wanton boy, the more his blame, did draw his bow awry and hurt his dame, by all the honour and the sacrifice that from Cytherean and from Paphos rise, that wheresoever this ball of purest gold, that chaste Diana here in hand doth hold, impartially her wisdom shall bestow, without mislike or quarrel any more. Venus shall rest content and satisfied, and say the best desert doth there abide.
So Diana, having taken their oaths, now speaks, describing the Nymph Eliza, figure of the current queen.
It is enough, and goddesses attend. There once within these pleasant shady woods, where neither storm nor sun's distemperature have power to hurt by cruel heat or cold, under the climate of the milder heaven, where seldom lights Jove's angry thunderbolt, for favour of that sovereign earthly peer, where whistling winds make music among the trees, far from disturbance of our country gods, amidst the cypress springs a gracious nymph, that honours Diana for her chastity, and likes the labour well of Phoebe's groves. The place Elysium high, and of the place her name that governs there Eliza is. A kingdom that may well compare with mine, an ancient seat of kings, a second Troy. The compassed round with a commodious sea, her people are are Yclept Angeli, or if I miss, a letter is the most. She giveth laws of justice and of peace, and on her head, as fits her fortune best, she wears a wreath of laurel, gold and palm, her robes of purple and scarlet dye, her veil of white, as best befits a maid. Her ancestors live in the house of fame. She giveth arms of happy victory, and flowers to deck her lions crowned with gold. The peerless nymph, whom heaven and earth beloves, this paragon, this only, this is she, in whom do meet so many gifts in one, on whom our country gods so often gaze, in honor of whose name the muses sing, in state Queen Juno's peer for power in arms, and virtues of the mind Minerva's mate, as fair and lovely as the queen of love, as chaste as Dian in her chaste desires, the same is she, if Phoebe do not wrong, to whom this ball in merit doth belong.
If this be she whom some Zebeta call, to whom thy wisdom well bequeaths the ball, I can remember at her day of birth how Flora with her flowers strewed the earth, how every power with heavenly majesty in person honoured that solemnity.
The lovely Graces were not far away. They threw their balm for triumph of the day.
The fates against their kind began a cheerful song, and vowed her life with favour to prolong. Then first 'gan Cupid's eyesight waxen dim, belike Eliza's beauty blinded him. To this fair nymph, not earthly, but divine, contents it me my honour to resign.
To this fair queen, so beautiful and wise, Pallas bequeaths her title in the prize.
To her whom Juno's looks so well become, the Queen of Heaven yields at Phoebe's doom, and glad I am that Diana found the art, without offence so well to please desert.
Then mark my tale. The usual time is nigh, when wont the dames of life and destiny, in robes of cheerful colours, to repair to this renowned queen so wise and fair, with pleasant songs this peerless nymph to greet. Clotho lays down her distaff at her feet, and Lachesis does pull the thread at length. The third with favour gives it stuff and strength, and for contrary kind affords her leave, as her best likes, her web of life to weave. This time we will attend, and in meanwhile, with some sweet song the tediousness beguile.
And so music sounds, and the nymphs within sing with voices and instruments a while. Then enter Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, singing, and follows, the state being in place.
Humanae vitae filum sic vovere pacai.
Humanae vitae filium sic tendere pacai.
Humanae vitae filum sic scindere pacai.
Clotho colum bajulat.
Lachesis trahet.
Atropos acat.
Vive
Vive Dio Felix votis hominique donque, corpore mente libro doctissima candida casta.
And they lay their various properties down at, yes, Queen Elizabeth I's feet.
Clotho colum pedibus.
Caesius tibi pendula fia.
Et fatale tuis manibus ferrum Atropos offert. Vive Dio Felix votis hominique donque, corpore mente libro doctissima candida casta.
And the song being ended, Clotho speaks directly to the Queen herself in the audience.
Gracious and wise, fair queen of rare renown, whom heaven and earth belove amid thy train, noble and lovely peers, to honor thee and do thee favor more than may belong by nature's law to any earthly wight. Behold, continuance of our yearly due, the impartial dames of destiny we meet, as have the gods, and we agreed in one, In reverence of Eliza's noble name, and humbly low her distaff Clotho yields.
Her spindle, Lachesis, and her fatal reel lays down in reverence to Eliza's feet. Titamen in terris unam tria numina divam, vega statunt naturae leges sores, tibi non alias digerunt parse parcae.
Dame Atropos, according as her fears, to thee, fair queen, resigns her fatal knife. Live long the noble phoenix of our age, our fair Eliza, our Zepita fair.
And lo, beside this rare solemnity and sacrifice these dames are wont to do, a favour, far indeed contrary kind, bequeathed is unto thy worthiness, this prize from heaven and heavenly goddesses.
And she delivers the ball of gold to the queen's own hands.
Accepted then, thy due by Dian's doom, praise of the wisdom, beauty, and the state, that best becomes thy peerless excellency.
So fair, Eliza, Venus doth resign the honour of this honour to be thine.
So is the Queen of Heaven content likewise to yield to thee her title in the prize.
So Pallas yields the praise hereof to thee, for wisdom, princely state, and peerless beauty.
And as an epilogue, they all repeat the various gifts that they have offered to the queen in Latin.
Vive Deo Felix Hominique Deum qua, corpore mente libros doctissima candida.
Which I'm sure is much cuter when it's performed by a lot of small children before the sovereign of the realm. And thus ends the play. Yes, you may have struggled to hear some of the dialogue towards the end there, because unfortunately some of the actors were so far wedged up the arse of the royal personage that the dialogue got somewhat muffled there. Yes, the final act is basically a coup de théâtre that can only be performed in the context of its original. That's one of the reasons I didn't mention it in advance. For those who hadn't read ahead, I saw some Sarah reaction shots that look quite good. But there is that question of what can we do with this, beyond inviting Beyonce or someone into the audience, a different famous celebrity to sit centre stage, to be handed a golden ball every show. What can we do to create, and what can we do with this play beyond that ending? And was it performed sans queen? And how do you end it without her?
Well, I can think of one film where they did a similar exercise. One that started off me going south of the river this time of night, where they got Judi Dench.
But she was actually playing the queen, so the queen was there.
Yeah.
Like, if the queen isn't there, I have no idea what you would do with this.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it would be regarded as very, very, very wrong and dangerous for an actor, especially a male actor, to impersonate the Queen on the public stage. I honestly think that would have been a no-no.
We can assume that this published script is effectively a record of that specific performance, whether there were other performances with an alternative ending, or whether just simply they just didn't bother with Act. You could almost not do with Act 5. You can just say it's deferred, the play sort of ends in a sort of uncomfortable way, and that almost feels plausible, actually. But I don't know.
I think you should write an alternative ending where Colin comes in at the end and just eats the apple. Colin eats the apple, and then just throws the core over his shoulder and yeah, buggers off.
I think you could fix it so that they say, we are going to take this to Elizabeth. Stick with all the praise, stick with all the glory, stick with the decision. Just don't hand it over to her on the stage. I think that would be would be doable. But to be honest, if I was putting it on, I would tend to have someone playing Elizabeth as part of the audience, as, you know, this is the play before the Queen. You are privileged to be in the audience with the Queen of England.
You can see the cosplayers would really, you know, you'd find lots of volunteers who'd want to play, you know, that they'd pay more money as well to get, you know, they get the costume and turn up and you get food, you get an additional service, you get your friends around you on the table at the primary desk. You could have so much fun with that. Francis, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think it's I think that's an interesting idea. But if you had an actor or actress in the audience amongst a modern audience dressed as Queen Elizabeth, wouldn't you kind of tip the audience off that she's going to be part of the action of the play at some point, and therefore it's a bit of a spoiler in some ways?
True, but
your idea, Rob, gets around that. I mean, if you just tell everybody, like, oh, audience, pay extra and come and sit on Elizabeth's top table, be the Queen for the evening. Oh my God, people would love that. And well,
if everybody in the audience has to dress up, you make it that's the thing.
Or a significant number.
You could make it an optional thing, but if you want to be on Elizabeth's top table, then you have to dress up. I mean, God, people would definitely pay extra for that. Like, that's genius marketing.
It's a national trust idea, really, isn't it? Other thoughts, because we have a relatively brief window to just talk about the play generally. You know, how we might do this today. You know, do we? Because ultimately we could just say we don't buy the premise of the play, and at the end we just say nobody gets the apple because, you know what, it's a trap. You know, the whole game is doing, you know, is really questionable, and interfere with the text if we wanted to. You can do whatever you like with this play. He's dead. You can do whatever you like with Green. Peele, rather. So final thoughts about the play, and what you might want to do with it if you have a different take.
There's a hole in the logic of the play in that the Trojan War did take place. So presumably Paris did get Helen.
That's where he's off to now.
Regardless of whether or not Venus got the ball.
I also find it a little bit, just a tiny bit problematic that they're basically, we're just before the doom of Troy in the story. And then they're saying, oh, London is a second Troy, which makes me go, are you implying that it's going to fall?
I don't think in general popular sentiments of the various call it, you know, because Peele wrote Civic Entertainments as well around about the time of this. So it's a general thing of comparing a great city that in the past. I don't think that's the idea, but it's a good point actually. Yes.
I just had a quick look at a note I made when I was looking at the text some time ago, and I see that I did bother to look up how old Queen Elizabeth would have been, and whatever the dates of the play, and there is a range, she would have been in her very late 40s.
Great age.
It's event.
Yeah.
Now, yes, then not so much.
Right.
Also, at that point, she had her scars, didn't she? So she would have been.
Allegedly.
Oh, absolutely.
No, there's a lot of pushback on that aesthetic of what she looked like, and how scarred she was. That's become a bit of a cliche for films. The amount of scarring is I've seen quite a lot of pushback on that.
Was she self-conscious of it though?
I'm sure she was very conscious of her image. Whether she was self-conscious of that, I don't know.
I'm wondering, I'm trying to think if it's written after the main conflict with the Spanish. Could the fall then be Spain? I don't know if that works
before.
chronologically.
No, we're a good, potentially 7 years earlier than this.
Ah, we are. Okay.
One way you could do it now is, I saw a production of Dido at the RSC where the gods were basically sort of filming stuff on their phones, and there was a kind of projection element to it. So, and I wonder if you'd have to have some kind of, I don't know, video presence of the gods, a sort of surveillance thing. And at some point, they drop out of the screen and this new figure turns up. So it wouldn't be live. It would be a bit of, you'd have to do a bit of sort of camera type wizardry. But it might work because it would position her like the gods are. And it would give you a different sense of what's happening as well, that people are watching it even when they're not there, which that might work.
Okay, let's start transitioning over to the next play in the sequence. Final thoughts, if anyone has them while people do that. Anyone want to throw in an alternative take, something else you might want to do with it, apart from more stage time for Colin?
Always.
I'd say it would lend itself. The only way I would probably be interested in it, sorry, would be, if you really did something physical. Everyone always talks about complicity, obviously, but something like that, you'd have to blend some sort of elements. So that it would lend itself maybe to kind of a performance art piece in a weird way. Is where my mind goes, because there's lots of elements you could do. Therefore, with the ball. I'm sure there's visual storytelling that you could do, like Stephen was actually saying there, but something that would be akin to physical work, I think would be the only way to maybe engage the modern audience.
I find this play is really interesting. It's sort of quite a total piece of theatre. It uses visuals, it's using music, it's using dance, intimated that it's using dance. I don't think there's that much actual dancing occurring. And it's also a question of, what is it? Because, it's not really a comedy, but it's not really a tragedy either. And it's sort of, it's a pastoral thing. But it's a really interesting balancing act to how you present this. And we're talking about atmosphere and tone. You need to get that right. There's lots of interesting questions. Sadly, we are out of time. We need to move on to our next play. Hold it to the end. We might do some recapping at the very end of this session, but I'm aware of time. Moving rapidly forward as we go into the first part of the most tyrannical tragedy and reign of Selimus, Emperor of the Turks and grandfather to him that now reigneth. It is, as ever, it's always difficult to give a trigger warning without having thoroughly read things in advance, but some people might die horribly, and any plays that are engaging with foreign climes from the early modern period has the risk of being somewhat problematic in its depiction of other cultures. I do not know where this play falls on that spectrum, but it's always important to flag that up before we start to see where it goes. It is on the title page. It is allegedly written by a TG author. We are not going to speculate at this time. So without further ado, we are going to dip into the prologue and the first scene after that as well. So prologuers.
No feigned toy nor forged tragedy, gentles, we here present unto your view, but a most lamentable history, which this last age acknowledgeth for true. Here shall you see the wicked son pursue his wretched father with remorseless spite, and daunted once his force again renew, poison his father, kill his friends in fight. You shall behold him, character in blood, the image of an implacable king, and like a sea or high resurging flood, all obstant lets down with his fury filling, which, if with patience of you shall be heard, we have the greatest part of our reward.
And enter Bajazet, Emperor of Turkey, Mustaffa, Cherseoli, and the Janissaries.
Leave me, my lords, until I call you forth, for I am heavy and disconsolate.
And Bajazet is left alone as everybody now exits.
So, Bajazet, now thou remainest alone. Unrip the thoughts that harbour in thy breast, and eat thee up. For arbiter is none that may descry the cause of thy unrest, unless these walls thy secret thoughts declare. The prince's walls, they say, unfaithful are. Why, that's the profit of great regiment, that all of us are subject unto fears, and this vain show and glorious intent privy suspicion on each scruple rears. Aye, though on all the world we make extent, from the South Pole unto the northern bears, and stretch our reign from east to western shore, yet doubt and care are with us evermore. Look how the earth, clad in her summer's pride, embroidereth her mantle gorgeously with fragrant herbs and flowers gaily dyed, spreading abroad her spangled tapestry, yet under all a loathsome snake doth hide. Such is our life. Under crowns cares do lie, and fear the sceptre still attends upon. Who can take delight in kingly throne? Public disorders joined with private care, care of our friends and of our children dear, do toss our lives as waves a silly bark. Though we be fearless, 'tis not without fear, for hidden mischief lurketh in the dark, and storms may fall, be the day ne'er so clear. He knows not what it is to be a king that thinks a sceptre is a pleasant thing. Twice 15 times hath fair Latona's son walked about the world with his great light since I began. Would I had ne'er begun to sway this sceptre. Many a careful night, when Cynthia in haste to bed did run, have I, with watching, vexed my aged sprite. Since when what dangers I have overpassed would make a heart of adamant aghast. The Persian Sophie, mighty Ishmael, took the Levant clean away from me, and Caragius Bassa sent his force to quell, was killed himself, the while his men did flee. Poor Ali Basso, having once sped well and gained of him a bloody victory, was at the last slain, fighting in the field, charactering honour in his battered shield. Rami Chan, the Tartarian emperor, gathering to him a numberless of big-boned Tartars in hapless hour, encountered me, and there my chiefest blesh, good Alamshai, this remembrance saw, slain. The more to augment my sad distress in leasing Alamshi poor, I lost more than ever I'd gained theretofore. Well, may thy soul rest in her latest grave, sweet Alamshai, the comfort of my days. That thou mightst live, how often did I crave, how often did I bootless prayers raise to that high power that life first to thee gave. Trusty wast thou to me at all assays, and, dearest child, thy father oft hath cried that thou hast lived so he himself had died. The Christian armies, oftentimes defeated by my victorious father's valiance, have all my captains famously confronted and cracked in two our uncontrolled lands. My strongest garrisons they have supplanted, and overwhelmed me in sad mischance, and my decrease so long wrought their increase, till I was forced to conclude a friendly peace. Now all these are but foreign damages taken in war, whose die uncertain is, but I shall have more home-born outrages, unless my divination aims amiss. I have 3 sons, all of unequal ages, and all in diverse studies set their bliss. Korkut, my eldest, a philosopher. Akamat, pompous. Selim, a warrior. Korkut in fair Magnesia leads his life, in learning arts and Mahom's dread laws. Akomat loves to court it with his wife, and in a pleasant, quiet joys to pause. But Selim follows wars in dismal strife, and snatches at my crown with greedy claws. He shall miss of that he aimeth at, for I reserve it for my Akomat. For Akomat, alas, it cannot be. Oops, sorry. Stern Selimus has won my people's heart. The Janissaries love him more than me, and for his cause will suffer any smart. They see he is a friend to chivalry, and sooner will they from my faith depart, and by strong hand Bajazet put thee down, and let their Selim hop without the crown. If the soldiers overrule thy state, and nothing must be done without their will, if every base and upstart runagate shall cross a prince and overthwart him still, if Korkut, Selimus, and Akamat with crowns and kingdoms shall their hungers fill, poor Bajazet, what then remains to thee but the bare title of thy dignity? Aye, and unless thou do dissemble all and wink at Selimus' aspiring thought, the bastards cruelly shall work thy fall, and then thy empire is but dearly bought. That our sons thus to ambition thrall should set the law of nature all at naught. But what must be cannot choose but be done. Come, bastards, enter. Bajazet hath done.
And the lords enter again.
Dread Emperor, long may you happy live, loved of your subjects and feared of your foes. We wonder much what doth your highness grieve that you will not unto your lords disclose. Perhaps you fear lest we, your loyal peers, we prove disloyal to your majesty and be rebellious in your dying years. But, mighty prince, the heavens can testify how dearly we esteem your safety.
Perhaps you think Mustaffa will revolt and leave your grace and cleave to Selimus, but sooner shall the Almighty's thunderbolt strike me down to the cave Tenebrious, the lowest land, and damned spirits halt, than true Mustaffa prove so treacherous. Your Majesty then needs not much to fear, since you are loved of subject, prince, and peer. First shall the sun rise from the Occident, and lose his steeds benighted in the east. First shall the sea become the continent, ere we forsake our sovereign's behest. We fought not for you 'gainst Persian's tent, breaking our lances on his sturdy crest. We fought not for you against the Christian host, to become traitors after all our cost.
Hear me, Mustaffa and Cherseoli. I am a father of a headstrong brood, which if I look not closely to myself, will seek to ruinate their father's state, even as the vipers in great Nero's fen eat up the belly that first nourished them. You see, the harvest of my life is past. An aged winter hath besprent my head with a hoar frost of silver-coloured hairs, the harbingers of honourable eld. These branch-like veins, which once did guide my arms to toss the spear in battleless array, now, withered up, have lost their former strength. My sons, whom now ambition gins to prick, may take occasion of my weakened age, and rise in rebel arms against my state. But stay, here comes a messenger to us.
And sound within, enter a messenger. Messenger? Alan. Oh, he looks frozen. Someone leap in and be a messenger. Who's not speaking in this half?
Health and good hap to Bajazet, the great commander of all Asia. Selim, the Sultan of Great Trebizond, sends me unto your grace to signify his alliance with the King of Tartary.
Said I not, lords, as much to you before, that mine own sons would seek my overthrow? And see, here comes a luckless messenger to prove that true which my mind did foretell. Does Selim make so small account of us that he dare marry without our consent, and to that devil too of Tartary? And could he then, unkind, so soon forget the injuries that Ramir did to me, thus to consort himself with him against me?
Your Majesty misconstrues Selimus. It cannot be that he and whose high thoughts a map of many valors is enshrined should seek his father's ruin and decay. Selimus is a prince of forward hope, whose only name affrights your enemies. It cannot be he should prove false to you.
Can it not be? Oh, yes, Cherseoli, for Selimus' hands do itch to have the crown, and he will have it, or else pull me down. Is he a prince? No, he is a sea, into which run naught but ambitious reaches, seditious complots, murder, fraud, and hate. Could he not let his father know his mind, but match himself when I least thought on it?
Perhaps my lord Selimus loved the dame and feared to certify you of his love, because her father was your enemy.
In love, Mustaffa? Selimus in love? If he be lording, 'tis not ladies' love, but love of rule and kingly sovereignty. Wherefore should he fear to ask my consent, trusty Mustaffa? If he feared me, he would never have loved mine enemy. His marriage with the Tartar's daughter is but the prologue to his cruelty, and quickly shall we have the tragedy, which though he act with meditated bravery, the world will never give him plaudity. But yet more news.
And Sam within, we have a different messenger. Elizabeth will read messenger number 2.
Dread Emperor, Selimus is at hand. 200,000 strong Tartarians, armed at all points, does he lead with him, besides his followers from Trebizond.
I thought so much of wicked Selimus. Oh, forlorn hopes and hapless Bajazet. His duty then exiled from his breast, which nature hath inscribed with golden pen deep in the hearts of the honourable men. Oh, Selim, wert thou not my son, but some strange unacquainted foreigner whom I should honour as I honoured thee? Yet would it grieve me even unto the death if he should deal as thou hast dealt with me. And thou, my son, to whom I freely gave the mighty empire of great Trebizond, art too unnatural to requite me thus. God, Alimshai, hadst thou lived till this day, thou wouldst have blushed at thy brother's mind. Come, sweet Mustaffa, come, Cherseoli, and with some good advice, recomfort me.
And they exit all. Now, we've obviously lost Alan. It's a fascinating opening of a play. I mean, we have this absolutely massive speech, and you read it on the page and you go, "Oh my God, there is this massive speech." But it is also I think a really good speech. It may still be too long, and you might want to trim it down. But it's still really good. Who can take delight in kingly throne? He knows not what it is to be a king that thinks a scepter is a pleasant thing. I love that line. It's doing quite a lot, but it's so internal in the life of the mind of Bajazet. I find it fascinating. It's sort of interesting contradiction. It is a bit long, but it's still really good. Thoughts? You can disagree with me if you like. Thoughts on the room, Simon?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very engaging opening, in no small measure thanks to Stephen's brilliant reading, I felt. But it's what you want, I think, in setting a scene, which should be, of course, a prologue's job with our plot spoilers, but to have the lead character with this immediate, one of the lead characters with this immediate soliloquy, knowing exactly how he feels, really sets up the coming action very well. So yeah, it got me from the off.
Yeah, and it's such a difference in tone from what we were just reading.
Yes,
I mean, it's like the room just went.
I was ill.
Like that. It was such a different action. Other thoughts?
It's such a bold way to start. It's like you're almost straight into this really kind of navel dwelling like monologue, and it's so absorbing. But like I haven't, the only plays I really know from this era, other than the other ones, are the ones I've done with you. But I haven't come across anything like this in the stuff we've done before, where you're just thrown straight away into the mind of this man who's got all these conflicts going on in his head and all this complex stuff to sort out. And also normally with these, I assume this is, from what you said, it's going to turn into like a very warlike play with loads of heads rolling. You know, normally the character, I'm thinking of, you know, Tamburlaine and his ilk, you know, they start off all like, oh, you know, battly, and then as they get older and mature, it's like, oh, damn, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or not, it's the case maybe. But here you've got a guy who's so regretful and so like has so much wisdom because of the wars he's been through at the very beginning of the play, and it's like, oh man, it really draws you in straight away.
Elizabeth.
I thought it was interesting that Selimus is introduced to us this way through the speech of another character, and the fact that he's only one problem the Bajazet has at the beginning, but obviously, judging from the title, I assume that problem of Selimus will become greater and greater still as the play progresses.
Yeah, it's a family saga, isn't it? It's setting us up. Helen.
Yeah, that was actually the bit about the family saga was what I was going to make, the point I was going to make. It seems to me that if you're looking for a modern parallel, it's the father, the patriarch of a family business who has to pass it on because he's getting too old and too tired for this. But he knows that the knives are going to come out the moment he makes a decision.
We've had a lot of dynasties and dynastic action in other plays as well. Stephen.
Yeah, just to kind of add to that, it reminded me very much of a sort of John Ford Western, and in the sense that this is a kind of aged gunslinger as well. You know, this kind of trope of the older, experienced guy who's just got to go through this stuff another time. And you know, that's quite a resonant thing, I think. You know, it opens with that kind of sense of having been the best, as it were, and having sort of set a kind of family dynasty up. But now it just being, you know, time is against you, but you still got to buckle up and get on and go out and do it. You know, it's kind of high noon, if you like.
I do need to move us forward, so we're going to go into the next scene. We've labelled it as scene 2 in the edition. I didn't mention dates. We're thinking this is somewhere around the early 1590s, 91, 92 sort of area. It's always difficult to precisely place a play. It gets printed a few years later. There's an earlier edition than the one actually mentioned on the front of your script. And there do seem to be some interesting word variations actually between the two editions. There are a few minor differences that are quite interesting, which is not really what this forum is about. So scene 2, we open with another long speech. Spoiler alert, there's another long speech coming up now. But this time with other people on stage at the same time. So let's see if this is doing something different while also being slightly similar. Enter Selimus, Sinam, Otrante, Occhiali, and the soldiers.
Wow, that is a long speech.
Sarah doesn't read ahead.
You told me not to.
I know.
It's good. It's good.
It's great.
I used to read ahead. When I started doing this, I always read ahead, and then I was like, okay, I won't read ahead because, you know.
Go, Selimus.
Now, Selimus, consider who thou art. Long hast thou marched in disguised attire, but now unmask thyself and play thy part, and manifest the heat of thy desire. Nourish the coals of thine ambitious fire, and think that then thy empire is most sure, where men for fear thy tyranny endure. Think that to thee there is no worse reproach than filial duty in so high a place. Thou oughtst to set barrels of blood abroach, and seek with sword whole kingdoms to displace. Let Mahon's laws be locked up in their case, and meaner men and of a baser spirit in virtuous actions seek for glorious merit. I count it sacrilege, for to be holy, or reverence this threadbare name of good. Leave to old men and babes that kind of folly. Count it of equal value with the mud. Make thou a passage for thy gushing flood by slaughter, treason, or what else thou can, and scorn religion, it disgraces man. My father, Bajazet, is weak and old, and hath not much above 2 years to live. The Turkish crown of pearl and offer gold, he means to his dear Acomat to give. But ere his ship can to her haven drive, I'll send abroad my tempests in such sort that she shall sink before she gets the port. Alas, alas, his highness' aged head is not sufficient to support a crown. Then Selimus take thou it in his stead. And if at this thy boldness he dare frown, or but resist thy will, then pull him down. For since he hath so short a time enjoy it, I'll make it shorter, or I will destroy him. Nor pass I what our holy votaries shall here object against my forward mind. I reek not of their foolish ceremonies, but mean to take my fortune as I find. Wisdom commands to follow tide and wind, and catch the front of swift occasion, before she be too quickly overgone. Some man will say I am too impious, thus to lay siege against my father's life, and that I ought to follow virtuous and godly sons. That virtue is a glass, wherein I may my errant life behold, and frame myself by it in ancient mould. Good sir, your wisdom's overflowing wit digs deep with learning's wonder-working spade. Perhaps you think that now, forsooth, you sit with some grave wizard in a prattling shade. Avaunt such glasses. Let them view in me the perfect picture of right tyranny. I, like a lion's look, not worth a leak when every dog deprives him of his prey, these honest terms are far enough to seek when angry fortune menaceth decay. My resolution treads a nearer way. Give me the heart conspiring with the hand, in such a course my father to withstand. Is he my father? Why, I am his son. I owe no more to him than he to me. If he proceed, as he hath now begun, and pass from me the Turkish signory to Acromat, then Selimus is free. And if he injure me that am his son, faith, all the love twixt him and me is done. But for I see the schoolmen are prepared to plant against me their bookish ordinance, I mean to stand on a sententious guard, and without any far-fetched circumstance, quickly unfold mine own opinion, to arm my heart with irreligion. When first circled round this building fair, some god took out of the confused mare, what god I do not know, nor greatly care. Then every man of his own dition was, and every one his life in peace did pass. War was not then, and riches were not known, and no man said, this or this is mine own. The ploughman with a furrow did not mark how far his great possessions did reach. The earth knew not the share, nor seized the bark. The soldiers entered not the battered breach, nor trumpets that Tantara loud did teach. There needed them no judge, nor yet no law, nor any king of whom to stand in awe. But after Ninus, warlike Belus' son, the earth with unknown armour did array, then first the sacred name of king begun, and things that were as common as the day did then to set possessors first obey. Then they established laws and holy rites to maintain peace and govern bloody fights. Then some sage man above the vulgar wise, knowing that laws could not in quiet dwell unless they were observed, did first devise the names of the gods, religion, heaven and hell, and gan of pains and feigned rewards to tell, pains for those men which did neglect the law, rewards for those that lived in quiet awe. Whereas indeed they were mere fictions. And if they were not, Selim thinks they were. And these religions, observations, only bugbears to keep the world in fear and make men quietly a yoke to bear, so that religion of itself, a bauble, was only found to make us peaceable. Hence in especial come the foolish names of father, mother, brother, and such like. For who so well his cogitation frames shall find they serve but only for to strike into our minds a certain kind of love. For these names too are but a policy, to keep the quiet of society. Indeed, I must confess, they are not bad, because they keep the baser sort in fear. But we, whose mind in heavenly thoughts is clad, whose body doth a glorious spirit bear, that hath no bounds, but flieth everywhere, why should we seek to make that soul a slave, to which Dame Nature so large freedom gave? Amongst us men, there is some difference of actions termed by us good or ill, as he that doth his father recompense differs from him that doth his father kill. And yet, I think other what they will, that parricides, where death hath given them rest, shall have a gooder part as hath the best. And that's just nothing. For as I suppose, in death's void kingdom reigns eternal night, secure of evil and secure of foes, where nothing doth the wicked man affright, no more than him that dies in doing right. Then, since in death nothing shall to us fall here while I live, I'll have a snatch at all, and that can never, never be attained unless old Bajazet do die the death. For long enough the greybeard now hath reigned, and lived at ease, while others lived uneath. And now 'tis time he should resign his breath. 'Twere good for him if he were pressed out. 'Twould bring him rest, and rid him of his gout. Resolve to do it, cast to compass it, without delay or long procrastination, it argueth an unmanured wit, when all is ready for so strong invasion to draw out time. An unlooked for mutation may soon prevent us if we do delay. Quick speed is good, where wisdom leads the way.
My lord.
Lo, fly boy to my father Bajazet, and tell him Selim, his obedient son, desires to speak with him and kiss his hands. Tell him I long to see his gracious face, and that I come with all my chivalry to chase the Christians from his signories. In any wise, say, I must speak with him.
Exit Occhiali.
Now, Sinam, if I speed.
What then, my lord?
What then? Why, Sinam, thou art nothing worth. I will endeavour to persuade him, man, to give the empire over to me. Perhaps I shall attain it at his hands. If I cannot, this right hand is resolved to end the period with a fatal stab.
My gracious lord, give Sinam leave to speak. If you resolve to work your father's death, you venture life. Think you the Janissaries will suffer you to kill him in their sight and let you pass free without punishment?
If I resolve, as sure as heaven is heaven, I mean to see him dead, or myself king. And for the Basses, they are all my friends, and I am sure would pour on their dearest blood that Selim might be emperor of the Turks.
Yet Akamat and Korkut both survived to be revenged for their father's death.
Sinam, if they, or 20 such as they, had 20 several armies in the field, if Selimus were once your emperor, I'd dart abroad the thunderbolts of war and mow their hapless squadrons to the ground.
Oh, yet, my lord, after your highness' death, there is a hell and a revenging God.
Tush, Sinam. These are school conditions, to fear the devil or his cursed dam. Think'st thou I care for apparitions of Sisyphus and of his backward stone, and poor Ixion's lamentable moan? Now I think the cave of damned ghosts is but a tale to terrify young babes. like devils' faces scored on painted posts, or feigned circles in our astrolabes. Why, there's no more difference when we are dead, and death once come, than all alike are sped. Or if there were, I can scarce believe a heaven of joy and hell of endless pain. Yet by my soul, it never should me grieve, so I might on the Turkish emperor reign, to enter hell and lean on fair heaven's gain. An empire, Sinam, is so sweet a thing, as I could be a devil to be a king. But go we, lords, and solace in our camp, till the return of young Occhiali. And if his answer be to thy desires, Selim, thy mind in kingly thoughts attire.
And exit Selimus. I'm not sure we could recommend him for the Royal Society. He's quite determined to be bad, which is very fun. It's interesting, that question of how many people are in the room listening to him as he's saying all this, and how performative this is as bringing to the people around him, and therefore how much more dynamic this speech is, and also whether there are missing interjections. I did wonder at one point about the way some of that was structured at times. I'm not worried about it being too long, because that's why God invented blue pencils. I don't mind having too much material. There's still lots of really good material in there. There is, in my edition, that he actually calls for Occhiali when Occhiali says "my lord." That seems to be something we didn't pick up in this version. So Occhiali doesn't just randomly turn up and say "my lord." Is actually called for, apparently. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's an editorial edition later on or not.
I did wonder about that, because I thought, is he just listening to all of that? Just...
Well, that seems to be the intimation, is that everybody, this is performative, not internal.
Smiling and nodding.
It's a mass entrance that's noted in the 1594 quarter there. So
nobody exits like the last one.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last one felt internal, whereas this feels like he's deliberately bragging about how evil he is, because his men are all they're that kind of people.
Well, he's explaining his philosophy, which is well worked out, hangs together very logically, and in part, I mean, what God I do not know, nor greatly care.
Yes,
it's
a great line.
Stunning. And then the where he's saying that he quite likes laws because they keep the baser sort in fear. I mean, it's a sort of Dominic Cummings theory of government.
I'm wondering, have we heard that line somewhere else in another play? It sounds awfully familiar.
There's a lot of Marlowe in this, I think.
Yeah.
But religion, a toy invented to keep people in awe. That's can't remember which one it is. Tamburlaine, I think.
I think it's Tamburlaine. That's why I'm thinking. It's ringing bells, which is fine. Simon.
Yeah, I just think it's fascinating. I don't know if the author would have gotten away with a lot of the stuff about religion if the character wasn't so despicable. That's his get out clause, and I think it's fascinating to read a character, and of course possibly intone the opinion of the playwright about religion and religion's role in society, and it's just a toy, exactly. I thought that was absolutely striking. For me, it's very rare to be able to see or hear lines that dynamic at this time, particularly without a caveat. And I think the caveat is probably that he is such a schwein.
Oh, he's a lovely chap, Tamara.
Well, I was wondering how much underneath all that, how much they get away with talking about the religion and all of that like that, because we're not talking Christian, we're talking the heathens, we're talking Islam.
I think if they weren't characters over there, I don't know if that would have been down, but you're right, it's the Turks and the godless heathen. It's fascinating.
And the Italians.
Yeah.
And the Italians.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. I wonder if Occhiali is on purpose, obviously, because like to see the truth, something like that.
It's the sense of it. It's fine because it's someone other than someone within the English state. I mean, that seems to be the get out with quite a few plays that do this kind of thing. It's interesting. I felt worried for Sinam for a second because I thought he was going to go, "My lord, this is not a good idea," as many people have done before, and he doesn't quite. He goes, "We've got to be careful. We might get killed." So he's not objecting to the plan. He's just saying, "How are we going to do this, my lord? Do you have a cunning plan?" Which is sort of fine. We have unfortunately hit extra time before we've quite finished our allocation of text. If partly because we spent slightly longer on arraignment than I intended. We have got time in lieu a bit in the next sessions. Though I wondered whether we wanted to just read on a little bit, or how are people feeling for time?
I could do one more.
Yeah.
It's only a relatively short couple of scenes. We'll run them back to back. Let's crack through them. So scene 3: enter Bajazet again. Mustaffa, Cherseoli, Occhiali, and the Janissaries.
Even as the great Egyptian crocodile, wanting his prey with artificial tears and feigned plaints, his subtle tongue doth file to entrap the silly wandering traveller, and move him to advance his footing near, that when he is in danger of his claws, he may devour him with his famished jaws. So playeth crafty Selimus with me. His haughty thoughts will wait on diadems, and not a step but treads to majesty. The phoenix gazeth on the sun's bright beams, the echinacea swims against the streams. Naught but the Turkish sceptre can him please, and there I know lieth his chief disease. He sends his messenger to crave access, and says he longs to kiss my aged hands. But howsoe'er he in show profess, his meaning with his words but weakly stands. Sooner will the Satius boiling sands become a quiet road for fleeting ships, than Selimus' heart agree with Selim's lips. Too well I know the crocodile's feigned tears are but nets wherein to catch his prey, which whoso moved with foolish pity hears, will be the author of his own decay. Then hie thee, Bajazet, from hence away. A fawning monster is false Selimus, whose fairest words are most pernicious. Young man, what would Selim come and speak with us? Or what is his message to us? Canst thou tell?
He craves, my lord, another seigneury, nearer to you and to the Christians, that he may make them know that Selimus is born to be the scourge unto them all.
He's born to be a scourge to me and mine. He never would have come with such an host, unless he meant my state to undermine. What though in word he bravely seemed to boast the foraging of all the Christian coast. Yet we have cause to fear when burning brands are vainly given into a madman's hands. Well, I must seem to wink at his desire, though I see it plainer than the light. My lenity adds fuel to his fire, which now begins to break in flashing bright. Then Bajazet chastises his stubborn sprite, lest these small sparkles grow to such a flame as shall consume thee and thy house's name. Alas, I spare when all my store is gone, and thrust my sickle where the corn is reaped. In vain I send for the physician, when on the patient is his grave dust heaped. In vain, now all his veins in venom steeped break out in blisters that will poison us, we seek to give him an antidotus. He that will stop the brook must then begin when summer's heat hath dried up his spring, and when his pittering streams are low and thin. But let the winter aid unto him bring, he grows to be of watery floods the king. And though you dam him up with lusty ranks, yet he will quickly overflow his banks. Messenger, go and tell young Selimus, we give to him all great Samandria, bordering on Belgrade of Hungaria, where he may plague these Christian renegades and salve the wounds they have given to our saints. Cherseoli, go and provide a gift, a royal present for my Selimus, And tell him, messenger, another time he shall have talk enough with Bajazet.
Exeunt Cherseoli and Occhiali.
Now what counsel gives Mustaffa to us? I fear this hasty reckoning will undo us.
Make haste, my lord, from Andrinople walls, and let us fly to fair Byzantium, lest if your son, before you take the town, he may with little labour win the crown.
Then do so. Good Mustaffa. Call our guard, gather all our warlike janizars. Our chiefest aid is swift celerity. Then let our winged coursers tread the wind and leave rebellious Selimus behind.
And we move straight into scene 4, as we have it listed. Enter Selimus, Sinam, Occhiali, and Otrante, and their soldiers.
And is his answer so, Occhiali? Is Selim such a corsive to his heart that he cannot endure the sight of him? Forsooth, he gives thee all Samandria, from whence our mighty Emperor Mahomet was driven to his country back with shame. No doubt thy father loves thee, Selimus, to make thee regent of so great a land which is not yet his own, or if it were, what dangers wait him on that should it steer? Here the Polonian he comes hurtling in under the conduct of some foreign prince to fight in honour of his crucifix. Here the Hungarian with his bloody cross deals blows about to win Belgrade again. And after all, forsooth Basilius, the mighty emperor of Russia, sends in his troops of slave-born Muscovites, and he will share with us or else take all. In giving such a land so full of strife, his meaning is to rid me of my life. Now, by the dreaded name of Termagant, and by the blackest brook in loathsome hell, since he is so unnatural to me, I will prove as unnatural as he. Thinks he to stop my mouth with gold or pearl, or rusty jades fetched from Barbaria? No, let his minion, his philosopher, Corcut and Acomat be enriched with them. I will not take my rest till this my right hand hath pulled the crown from off his coward's head, and on the ground his bastard's gore-blood shed. Nor shall his flight to old Byzantium dismay my thoughts, which never learned to stoop. March, Sinam, march in order after him. Were his light steeds as swift as Pegasus and trod the airy pavement with their heels, yet Selimus would overtake them soon. And though the heavens do ne'er so crossly frown, in spite of heaven shall Selim wear the crown.
And he exits, and there's battle to happen, but that's sadly where we have run out of time at this particular point. Yeah, it's interesting. We have mentioned that, yes, there's an obvious overlap with very popular Tamblane plays that existed by the time this play exists. But I'm really interested by the elements that are very reminiscent of elements of Gorboduc. I mean, they're very different plays, but that tit-for-tat quality of, well, he didn't give me very much, so I'm going to do this now. Quality is really, really familiar. You know, this play isn't just linking to one other play in the past, it's actually connecting to an awful lot of other plays as well. So briefly, as we are very much into extra time, final thoughts about the opening of this play. We're a few scenes in, we're getting a sense of momentum now. The speeches are getting, there's still a lot of speechifying, but the speechifying is getting shorter. We may get into open dialogue at some point. Elizabeth?
Yes, I was wondering how we can maintain the audience's attention within so many long speeches, so many soliloquies.
Mm. I mean, there is that question. I mean, these speeches are increasingly with other people in the room and have a certain potential dynamism to them. But yeah, it's a big question of where the blue pencil, I think, goes. I think, you know, this is material, and that's fine. You know, that doesn't diminish the potential success of this play. Other final thoughts? Wave at me. Hello, Alan, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I had 5 internet crashes in the last half hour, so apologies for any bits I've missed. One thought that came up with me, I know at the top of the script we're talking about a 1628 date. I'm assuming the player's considerably earlier than that.
Not only earlier than that, but also there's a much earlier edition as well. That's a later reprint. So that's 1590-ish, 91,
right.
92.
Okay, so that makes more sense because we're back into almost, well, we're just after the Tamburlaine period then?
Other thoughts from the room? Helen?
I thought there might be a possibility of having some sort of dumb show in the background of the first speech, introducing the characters. I mean, while he's speaking, if you can actually see, okay, or maybe they're full-length portraits, I don't know, but something that just to give the audience something to focus on.
He's talking about his family. Let's see his family. Yes, I think that's a really good point. What other visual dynamics are going on beyond just the text?
Yeah, I mean, if you modernize it, you could potentially have him would he be giving a speech? Would he be giving an interview? And then you could intercut it. So it could be a multimedia kind of thing. But yeah, I felt the same. I love the language. I love the speeches, but you start drifting even though you're trying to read along and pay attention. So it's...
Yeah, there's just a wall of words, and there does come a point when you just want to break out into open action. And I mean, I say I'm interested in where the physicality of these speeches are going. That's Selimus' first speech is if that is to all of his men and moving around, and that there's something more dynamic about that, whereas opposed to that very internal first speech. And then these speeches, which again just can be trimmed much down. I mean, there are limits to how much we need of that. And so in terms of stage time, it's not necessarily as long as it feels in this situation. Of course, maybe we should just trust the text.
I think we also have to recognize that this is, from their point of view, a drama documentary. I mean, all the way through the introductory part, we are told that this is something that really, really happened, and just within the lifetime of people who are now alive. I mean, we're talking about 1512. And that what they are saying is, here we are explaining to you. This is going to be interesting to you people who are interested in history and the strange things that happen in foreign countries.
Yes, aren't they weird?
Well,
I mean, this isn't supposed to be a fantasy or an entertainment. Well, I mean, yeah, it is an entertainment. But...
yeah, nobody told Selimus it wasn't supposed to be an entertainment. He's obviously having far too much fun.
Well, would it be a bit like an early World War II film?
Maybe a World War I film for us.
It's. I mean, yes. I mean, framing it as a history play is you know, it doesn't call itself history. It's calling it it's about tyranny and tragedy. But yes, it's a history play, just not about our national history, which makes it different to the history plays that we've looked at before. And that creates a different framing for it. We're about to get a battle, so you know, if anyone has dozed off, they're about to wake up. Okay, we are very much at the end. Anyone got any very final thoughts? Obviously, we're still very early into the play. There's still 2 full sessions to do to look at this play, so there's a lot more to dig and delve as we go into it. Any final thoughts, Sarah?
I in general am a great believer in trusting the text, but I'm slightly disappointed by this because I was so wrapped up in the first monologue, mainly because it was so long and it was such a startling place to have a long monologue. And then we got another long monologue, and then we got another long monologue, and then we got another long monologue, you know, which people have said. And I'm slightly nervous now about reading the rest of it because I'm like, is this just going to be a series of big monologues? Are we actually going to break out, or is it this kind of like a throwback to, you know, earlier plays where it was just great big chunks of text? And I'm slightly confused by it because the writing is beautiful. And anyone who has the ability to construct those sorts of sentences surely must also have a sense of you know, what works dramatically on stage, and the fact that he should maybe be cutting up some of these big speeches with dialogues. I just find it a really confusing combination.
And so the one of the problems is, of course, we can't be 100% certain that, you know, this is the you know, an authentic presentation of the text as performed. There are moments in some of those speeches where I'm going, it feels like something else happened there. And so I kind of wonder about that, because I mean, we had that with Tamburlaine. Tamburlaine is cut. There is a comic business that is missing from that text, and there are other examples. So there's a question about publishing at this time where the texts we get do not necessarily fully represent the performance as it might have been performed. Francis, welcome to the group. Do you have a final thought you'll defer to us before I close the session as a newcomer?
Not really. I'm just looking forward. I'm really enjoying this play so far, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of it together with you guys.
Excellent. So unless anyone is absolutely bursting to make a new point, I'm going to close the session. We have another 2 sessions on this play to go over the next couple of days, and hope that you enjoy it. From me and the team, it's goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.